Welcome to Courtney on Health, brought to you on malcolmpresents.com, a streaming portal into the wonderful world of Zoom casting. Anyway, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Hello,
Good
how are
afternoon.
ya?
And
Hi. So
as usual, bring us in, Max.
I'm bringing us in because this is the holidays getting near, and I'm getting all excited about turkey. So, hi, Courtney, and hi, Malcolm, and welcome to Courtney on Health, which Malcolm said is a Zoom cast, but also a podcast series which focuses on one's overall well-being. We want to have with tips, especially during the holidays, with tips on nutrition and exercise given by Courtney Gravenese, registered dietitian with a Master of Science degree in nutrition and applied physiology. Courtney is an experienced nutritional and health consultant in the New York metro area, which goes national, global, universal, and she will help guide you on a path to wellness and health. So here we go. Whether you're having a big turkey dinner with lots of folks or a series of small gatherings with turkey sandwiches, who knows? Thanksgiving is about being with friends and family and appreciating each other. It still might mean having separate meals together over Zoom for some right now with loved ones that couldn't get there. But you'll be sharing this favorite holiday with those you love, and that is priceless. I mean, we can use that term. You don't have to go over and spend a lot of money on dinner. And you can even sometimes have a potluck. It's important to plan ahead, though. That's one of the keys. Try to buy produce in season. Don't be afraid of canned and frozen veggies. Take stock of what you already have and consider maybe buying in bulk, depending where you are. Make sure you have those favorite recipes on hand and be daring to try maybe some new ones. I'm gonna see if I can throw something in when I'm out in California. You turn on the Macy's parade and you start cooking. That's what I do. I don't know, for some reason the
Amen.
Macy's,
Yes, of course.
right, and then absolutely right, Courtney. It's got to go on while you're in the kitchen, and all those smells are coming through, and you're watching all the fun stuff happening down in New York City. And you could be anywhere and just enjoy it. And check out the football schedule. Maybe have a friendly game of touch football with the kiddos. Just get outside if you can. So Courtney has some great tips for having a delicious and budget-friendly and fun-filled Thanksgiving. So Courtney, start us off. What can you start, with tips for preparing a budget-friendly Thanksgiving meal?
Yes. And by the way, this is a great tip, although typically people might have a bigger group for Thanksgiving or any of the holidays afterwards, but it's a great tip for any entertaining to work off of a list, a head count first. And there are great guidelines that help you estimate, as the host or the hostess, how much food per person should you expect. So for example, meat typically, or any protein option, whatever you're serving, is generally a half a pound to 3/4 of a pound per person. But there are guidelines, tried and true guidelines. All you have to do is search it online. That gives you how many appetizers should you be serving per person, veggies, side dishes, things like that, to help you. Because what would be awful is you go through all of that work, right? And then you end up with a lot of leftovers, which everybody loves leftovers, right? But nobody wants leftovers that end up, going in the trash. So, and even if there are leftovers, which are great, they still cost you, the host, a lot of money on the front end. So make sure you've got a decent head count. And I get it, people show up last minute, which is fine. Most people like an open home approach, and come on in, the more the merrier. But you want to make sure that you are not way overcooking unnecessarily, because that will certainly drive up your budget significantly. So work with that list, guest list, work off of those tried and true. How much food should I be preparing? And let that be your guide. Right around now, for weeks to come, everybody gets these, or most everybody gets the grocery store advertisements about what's on sale. So use this as your guide and cross it with your recipe list to see what you plan on making, and if there's anything on there. And I will tell you, because I've been hosting for quite some time, usually there's stuff that's very predictable, that you can bank on. So for example, I have some examples here: sweet potatoes, but regular potatoes, and we'll talk about that.
That's a sweet potato? That is
Yeah,
huge.
they're ginormous. Yeah, they're big.
What?
Um,
What?
I
Wow.
know, it's crazy.
That's big.
So
That's
use it
huge.
as you got. Some people don't get the paper ones anymore. They get pushed to their phones. The reality is it's both the same outcome, which is use them as your friend to help you get the best prices on a lot of very typical Thanksgiving based foods.
Right.
So that would be the first thing to do. So look for those sales. You mentioned it, Max, seasonal veg. So this time of year, a lot of your different squashes. This happens to be delicata, but butternut squash, delicata squash, acorn squash. These wonderfully beautiful, they smell wonderful when they're roasted. Sweet potatoes. All of those not only are going to be at their best price of the year, because this is their season, they will be at the highest nutrient quality and content because they've been recently harvested, and they will last longest. So you can buy them, keep them in a relatively cool, dark space, and they will last a decent amount of time as your runway comes closer to the holiday Thanksgiving time. So definitely take advantage of those types of very fall Thanksgiving veg. Don't be afraid to use. Listen, I was looking at the grocery store ads this morning. Listen, if your budget can't allow sweet potatoes, and even though they are on sale, but you can buy russet potatoes, which are tried and true, very standard, very all-purpose potatoes. You can find those for pennies this time of year. I think you mentioned buying in bulk. How about sharing with a friend? If there's a
Right.
buy one, get one free, which is not uncommon this time of year, and you know there's somebody in your world who's also making potatoes, we'll split that. And that really can drive the cost down, particularly if you're making the same types of foods.
Right. Well, what about the bird itself? People are
Yes.
saying I've been hearing chatter that it's expensive. I mean, it's more and more, and there are less and less birds. So, how does one deal with pricing on that?
Right. So there's a couple of things, and let's start again with if you do shop often in the same grocery store, it is not uncommon to see deals like if you spend a certain amount before X date, you will get either a fresh or frozen turkey, or sometimes it's an alternative. Sometimes they give you like either a vegetarian or even a ham or
The
something like that.
ham seems to be a thing. Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you know you're shopping in that grocery store, well, that's free is free, man, as far as I, can tell. And I know some people are going to turn their noses up at, a frozen turkey, or, if they're not free range or they weren't bought from a farm. I think if you can afford that and it's available to you, I think it's great. I love to support my local farmer. When we are having Thanksgiving home, I do try to get it from there, but it's costly. But many times I can swing it. Don't feel like you have to, because the reality is a really good cook. Okay, I bet you if you gave Ina Garten or the goddess, Julia Child, a frozen bird, and said do what you can with it, both of them would have been, can put out, an amazing bird. So
With butter, lots and lots of butter.
it does require a
They'll
lot
put it.
of, yes.
Both of them would put on probably a ton of butter, especially Julia Child.
Well, Julia Child said butter is the manner of God.
Right.
He loved it.
Right. So yeah, when you mentioned those two, I mean, I don't know about Ina Gardner as much, but Julia Child, butter was it. Sure.
But you got to help it out. So first of all, if you're not having a huge group and nobody's a huge fan of turkey per se, get roasting chickens. Most people find them moister, just better flavor. They're not as unwieldy as a big turkey. So some people don't have an oven big enough or a pan big enough. So don't rule out the good old chickens, and they may be a fine option given your how many guests you're having in your home.
I have to make a confession. I like chicken better than turkey.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm
I
saying.
find turkey is much drier.
Yeah.
If you make it right, I'm a turkey person, and I just after the next day or days, turkey sandwiches, I just, it's
And
just,
turning it into turkey soup. I mean,
yeah,
it
there's
takes
a
a
lot
little,
of things
but
you can do. Yeah.
lots of things. But so a couple of tried and true things you can do to help with the moisture of really any poultry, but in particular turkey, would be there's a variety of different brines you can do. You can do a dry brine, which is really just a fancy way of saying it. My mom didn't know from dry brine to wet brine to, all of these things I want to talk about today. She knew herbs, garlic, our friend butter, and doing it ahead of time to allow those flavors to really get into the bird. And to allow particularly if you're going to salt it ahead of time. And with regard to dry brining, that is really the key. You must get that salt on it and in it well in advance to allow the process of pulling water out, getting it back in. It's a chemical reaction, quite frankly. And if you shortcut that, you will end up with an extremely dry bird and in all likelihood, one without a great deal of flavor. So you want to make sure you try that. I've seen great recipes for buttermilk brined turkeys and chickens, which is wonderful. You think about the acid that's in there. You could use yogurt if you don't have buttermilk. So there's lots of ways to take what you have to work with, whatever kind of turkey you end up with, to help it out, to preserve that flavor and keep that moisture. What you don't want, however, are the ones that are pre-seasoned. If you can avoid the pre-seasoned ones, you'd be better off. You just have zero control over how much salt and, quite frankly, the seasoning that they are using in there. Why choose what's already pre-seasoned when you can pick and choose the herbs and flavors that you like? That would be the one thing I would say to avoid, would be the pre-seasoned ones.
So what kind of herbs do you use? What is your magic trick with the bird?
I love literally shoving in the cavity rosemary, garlic, parsley, thyme, lemons, whole lemons, cut in half and shoved in the inside. And then I make a paste of, and this is if I'm not going to brine it, by the way, a paste of, and this was my mom's recipe, just, butter, a little garlic, crushed up herbs. And you make a paste of it. Make sure it's room temperature so you literally can get over the skin, under the skin, and then make sure you temp that back in the refrigerator. You want that at least overnight. Or overnight preferably, and then it's good to go the next day. But some people like cilantro, some people don't like cilantro. So it's really sage is a big one. People like sage. It's a wonderful, very poultry friendly herb.
Right, I like rosemary. I'm more on what you were kind of putting in there, but yeah, that's everyone has their own spice.
Absolutely,
Everyone's
absolutely.
different spices of life.
Oh, and speaking of spices, thank you for bringing that up, because whether you're going to bake or cook for Thanksgiving or not, in all likelihood, the next month or two, you might be doing a lot of baking. Now is the best time, and this is every year. Things like flour and good flour, sugar, baking spices. So typically fall and seasonal spices like cinnamon, like ginger, always go on sale. So if you can do it, and they again, they don't last forever. If you remember our spice and seasoning episode, you can't leave them in your cabinet for 3 years. But if you buy now, they're going to last you, at least for a year. So now's a great time to save and stock up on those kinds of things, particularly if you're going to bake and use them a lot. With flour, you want to keep it in the refrigerator if you can, if you don't anticipate using it, over the next, I would say, month or two. It's the best way to store it, nice and cool.
Cool, baby. That's cool. That's good. What if you are not going to eat turkey or any meat related things? What if there's the vegetarian in your group or vegetarians in your group? Any suggestions?
Yeah, let them stay home.
Stay home and go eat your tofurkey by yourself.
Yeah.
I think some of my family members included prefer all of the side dishes to the actual main event, right? To the turkey. So, and again, that's very personal and very variable. But I have here, you mentioned using things like canned or frozen vegetables. Absolutely. Like you can make like a corn pudding. I know that's very popular and very traditional. Reality is, and I actually, for something like canned corn, I prefer the canned over the frozen because I think it holds up a little bit better. It stays a little firmer than the frozen, but either are a good option. So corn puddings are very hearty. They're very filling, and that's a great side dish. Mushrooms, you can either stuff them or saute them. Various types of potatoes that you can serve. If you chestnuts built in will add protein and add fiber to it. So all of those can make a very filling vegetarian meal. And honestly, if as the chef and as the hostess, it doesn't make it a daunting process because you don't need to make a whole separate entree. If you offer enough sides that are, vegetarian or vegan friendly, your guests who might not eat any meat at all will certainly have an option to choose from.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know because, there's some people who, don't go with the bird, but again, I'm about the bird. The bird is the word. So what about like food safety during this time? Because if you leave stuff out, or if you leave anything out too long, it could cause a problem. What do you suggest to people in terms of keeping things healthy?
Right.
Safe?
Yeah, no, it's so important. And I feel like we talk about this, frequently, and we hear a lot about it this time of year because it is so important. So first of all, when you're dealing with raw poultry, you really want to be careful about your cleaning surfaces. I think I've made the joke around, like when I'm making the turkey, I got gloves on, nobody's allowed in the kitchen. I basically have a hazmat suit on. I'm like in here. And then once it's all,
I want a picture of that. Okay.
I think I am going to do that. So, and then once it's all in the refrigerator, I'm in here with, disinfecting the counters and the sink. And now, of course, I'm a little crazy, so that might be a little over the top, but the message is make sure the cold foods stay cold, which is why you really need to evaluate your refrigerator space before you commit to a turkey that does not fit once it's out of the packaging and in a pan. And we can't rely on weather, right? I know sometimes people, if it's cold enough, they'll store things, so
More
you
than
can't
take a
do that.
picture, I want to record this. Well, I want to see you in the kitchen with your hazmat suit on, and I'll record it. We'll insert it in the show.
That would be funny. How to really cook a turkey, what you need to wear.
Yeah.
It's not
So
just
keeping the surfaces clean, getting the cold foods back in the refrigerator. Once the food is out, the general rule of thumb, unless it's extremely hot out, and then the window is shorter, but you really have about a 2-hour window, roughly 2.5 on the outside, 3 hours, where food can sit out at room temperature safely.
right.
After that, you want to make sure it's packed up. That's where using all sorts of tips and tricks. I save Chinese food and carry out food containers this time of year. That takes me straight now until New Year's to send people home with leftovers. But no matter how you pack it up, you want to make sure that it stays refrigerated until your guest actually has an opportunity to take it on the road with them. And this rule is whether it's a protein food or a mayonnaise food, it matters not. Everybody should be using the general rule of that 2.5-hour window on the outside to keep food safe. Remember the 41-40 rule, right? So foods are between 40 degrees and 140 degrees Fahrenheit are at the greatest temperature for bacterial and microbial contamination. So you don't want to let it sit there for too long because that's when they will multiply the most.
We don't want that.
No.
So what about dessert?
Yes.
And then we'll hopefully end with cocktails.
Yes, we will. I have a great tip about cocktails.
Okay.
So I have to, if you're from a budget perspective, it is almost always less money to make homemade versus store bought. Now, there's also the flavor to consider and things like that, but I'm just going to give you an example. Another thing that's typically on sale this time of year, I don't know if you guys can see this, this is canned pumpkin. Now, you can certainly do your own fresh pumpkin, get your own pumpkins, and a lot of work. That would certainly be the cheapest. But
this is mine. I don't have to do anything to it.
Anything to it. But given the sale prices of canned pumpkin, that is just pureed pumpkin, that's all it is, it's hard to beat the price for something like this. Even if you don't know or don't know how to or don't want to make your own crust, I will tell you that the packaged, like Pillsbury, but there are other brands, crusts that are available are a pretty good second. And you can make for pennies, literally, a pumpkin pie that is probably tastier than what you might get in certainly in a grocery store, but definitely less expensive than what you'd buy in a more premier bakery or things like that.
Where's a good place to get recipes for a good pumpkin pie? Is just go
oh my
online,
gosh,
go online and say pumpkin pie and that's it? Or
yeah, well, and you have to look at, I'm open to anything. I think people should experiment as much as they can. Maybe not first time out of the gate if they're not used to entertaining yet, because you never know. Baking has got a little bit more chemistry to it than cooking does. So it's easier to make a mistake when you're baking. But you can go online. I love Food Network. I do love Barefoot Contessa. That's Ina Garten. You can go to the Joy of Food, like, any of these, older school cookbooks that have them, but there's so many out there. Just look at the recipe. And again, if you've never made it before, or you've never made any kind of, dessert before, you'd want to sort of put it through do the amounts seem right to you? But there's so many options, and read those reviews. People are very honest about tweaks, whether it worked, whether it didn't. And a lot of them have tutorials. So if you're intimidated by being in the kitchen, it gives you a step-by-step, which is super helpful. And then of course we'll save money because you're not either wasting it or because it's so bad you have to throw it out.
Right. Cinnamon is big this time of year, I think. A lot of recipes have the desserts have cinnamon. Gingerbread is a thing. There's a lot out there, but of course, you have your apple pie, your pumpkin pie, and of course the pecan pie. I don't know what Malcolm's favorite pie is. Malcolm, what's your?
Do you have a favorite, Malcolm?
I like apple pie with a scoop of vanilla ice cream.
Oh, that's
a la mode.
It's but it has to be the good vanilla ice cream. I mean, we're not sponsored by Haagen-Dazs. It has like the great vanilla ice cream. Or is it I say vanilla, but most people say vanilla.
Yeah, it's where you're from. It's Brooklyn. Yes, vanilla in Brooklyn, but vanilla in Illinois. I don't know. What do I know? I have no idea. So those turkey
But you
sandwich...
mentioned pecan pie, Maxine. So I love pecan pie. It's a big winner in my family here. But as you know, nuts can be really expensive. So that would be a great thing to buy in bulk. If with a friend or family member, split it. And then it's probably plenty for your baking needs for the season. So it's half the cost of what you would spend if you had to buy the whole thing. So I think that that's a great thing to consider if those are desserts that you plan on making, on splitting something like that, because they are so costly.
Right. I feel like I don't know if it's the younger people, but I did that when I was younger. Like you ask each couple or person or group to contribute their the food, like one person does the
potluck kind of thing.
Yeah. One person does the sweet potatoes, one person does something else, and generally the hostess or the host does the turkey.
Yeah, it's a great way. I mean, certainly I think, growing up, that's what I had. And even today, if it's one of the holidays, it's Christmas or Thanksgiving, every little bit helps the host, not only in time management in the kitchen that day, but absolutely from a budgetary side. So it defrays some of that cost, which I think is a great way. If you've got family members or friends who are willing to bring something, and people really do want to help, so absolutely take advantage of that. You mentioned wine and like cocktails and libations, Maxine. So
hot buttered bourbon.
That sounds fun.
I was going through and it was like, that's one of the ones that was listed, like hot buttered bourbon. And then I don't know, that it's a whole, there's a bunch of different ingredients, but it sounds, again, butter. So and hot and hard cider seems to be popular too, like the hard apple cider is a big thing. But what
Mulled
cocktail?
wine, I know. Mulled
Yeah,
wine.
mulled wine. Right, right. What's your cocktail of choice during the holiday time?
As we get closer to Christmas, I think we made this last year. It's called the poinsettia, and it's red and it's pretty, and you can use, a sprig of rosemary to decorate it. But to be consistent with our watching your budget, I mean, obviously any kind of alcohol is going to be expensive, and it can very rapidly add to your bill. So if you don't drink at all, and most of your guests don't, I would firstly say to save the most money. Don't feel obliged to have any, but most people do offer some kind of beverages. Malcolm, to your point, that is something that you could certainly ask people to bring. I mean, obviously not cover the whole day, but thank you for your offer. Bring a bottle of white or whatever you want,
Right.
and that will certainly help.
Another cost cutting thing is if you shop at Costco, they have their house brands
Yes.
are generally private labeled from more expensive brands, and I think that's available now on the computer, that you could go over on Google and it tells you what the brand is that they house brand under their name.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You beat me to the punch, Malcolm. I was going to say one of my favorite things. And now of course, it means me shopping out of it's state by state. So not every Costco permits alcohol sales.
Yeah.
So New Jersey, you can. New York, you cannot. Connecticut, you can. So if you're close enough to a Costco in a state that permits wine and liquor sales, you are absolutely right, Malcolm, that they're like, I'm just thinking like a Sauvignon Blanc and a Chardonnay and a Pinot Noir that has the Kirkland label on it, but it is not Kirkland grapes. You're absolutely right. And it is a great savings. I would highly suggest checking it out, tasting it, but just go with it. If you've never tasted it and time doesn't permit, go with some of the reviews. They curate a very fine list of wines that are very tasty. And if you're funny about putting a Kirkland bottle on your table, you bust out some of those, carafes and a decanter, and you decant it into the glass, and nobody needs to know the wiser.
Well, yeah. Hey, you're gonna try to make people happy. You're gonna serve wine, and then of course you have to serve coffee, because you have to be careful. Make sure your guests aren't driving back.
That's right. Yes.
That's the other thing. So as a host, there's a whole bunch of things, not only cooking, but if there's kiddos there, how do you keep them sort of occupied? Do you give them a craft or something to do? You go outside and do the dads do some football with, or moms, or both, whatever, outside with the kiddies? There's a lot to think about, not just food, actually, in terms of hosting a Thanksgiving,
or leaving people go when they're had a little too much to drink.
Right. You can't
Because
let them go.
I think the host might. I think it might be the same as in a bar or restaurant. The host is liable.
Absolutely.
For what happens. They could be sued if, God forbid, someone gets into an accident.
So just everyone has to just keep it, have a good time, but try to keep an eye on Uncle Joe.
No, absolutely. Yes, keeping an eye, and be moderate in how much alcohol you take, and don't drink too much. And back to your question about the kiddos, Maxine, I'm always a fan of. Now, of course, it's darker and later in the day. Keep them as busy as you don't have to buy anything. Don't buy anything fancy. Remember, we're talking about budget this Thanksgiving. So send them outside and maybe have them run around a little bit, get some fresh air. Use some of the games, puzzles, things like that that you might already have inside. Fun games like Pictionary, charades are great for like when you've got a bigger group. So again, use what you have in your home. No need to buy anything. But those are ways to keep everybody pretty happy.
Yeah. Do you have any other traditions? I know when I go to Thanksgiving, or when we have it in my house, or I go to family, generally before we start to eat, generally we go around the table and everybody's says something, what they're thankful for this year and what this year has brought to them. Do you guys have something similar?
Yeah, go ahead, Courtney. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll go around. It might sometimes it's at the table, sometimes it's just in the room while we're all socializing together. So yeah, for us it works. I think it's a nice thing. Max, what about you?
Yeah. I've done that for a while. We go person to person. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's like, what? So,
Yeah.
and the rule is no politics. I mean, it's like, do not bring that up. Like, you want to have a good time, enjoy your family for their personalities and themselves, keep the craziness out, and just eat your food, have your drink, and enjoy.
No politics as long as you don't vote for Herschel Walker.
Well, don't. I said no politics.
That's no politics. That's common sense.
No. Get off of that. No. We're back. We still want people to just enjoy their meals, and now I know some of the vegetarians, though, I know that they have like a fake turkey stuff. Did you ever see that or have to make that, Courtney?
I have never made it. I have seen it, but not at my table. My sister's her side, like the in-laws on her end, have a vegetarian, a vegan in the family. So there's been a tofurkey type option in the mix. I can't say my sister fully embraced the tofurkey, but
I know. I just the name of it kind of throws me off. But people who they do eat it during the holiday, and the name is not turkey, it's tofurkey. Okay,
guys, it's time to wrap up the leftovers.
Oh yeah,
say goodbye to our guests.
We got to make we got to have some good turkey sandwiches the next day. That's the key, man.
So anyway, you guys have a fantastic Thanksgiving, because we'll probably meet after
the
holidays.
Yes, have a wonderful, blessed Thanksgiving. Good day.
Right. And as I say, count your blessings.
Yes,
because we knowing you guys, the three of us I know have a lot, and hopefully the rest of our audience. Yeah, have a safe travel, safe time. Try to be a little cautious also, and these, I hate to throw COVID in there, but just be careful, but have a good time and enjoy each other. That's the key. And try not to overeat. And put some music on and rock and roll, and just get you can definitely dance your leftovers. You can dance away the extra calories of again. Have a safe and happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you after the holidays. All right, I'll close it out. All right, hold on, let me take everyone out here. I'll take everyone out quickly. Yes, taking you out. We're running over. Thanks for joining us for Courtney on Health. To get more info, follow Courtney on her Facebook page, Courtney on Health, on Instagram at CLG Wellness, and on TikTok. Visit her website, CourtneyGravities.com. For more shows, go to MalcolmPresents.com and theManyShadesOfGreen.com. Check out all the podcasts as well, the podcast services for Courtney. And here we are, Courtney on Health, smart, sound nutrition, strong, safe fitness, and we'll catch you again next time. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. By the way, and all Courtney on Health shows are on demand on MalcolmPresents.com. My last plug. Bye. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.